knew when I was going to law school that I wanted to focus on international law and particularly human rights. It's a hard field to break into, and a lot of people there really specialize in something. And so having the extra LLM credential, I knew was going to be really helpful for showing that interest. I was also really interested in working with international organizations, and because the LLM is an internationally recognized degree, people understand it no matter where you're working. So if you're working with foreign attorneys or you're working even domestically in an international organization, people know that that's an advanced degree and that you've specialized in international law. And that was really my motivation for going to law school, was to be in those spaces. So the LLM program really appealed to me. And the ability to do it in 3 years also is helpful, so you're on the same timeline as the JD. Something that's particularly great about the program is you get to specialize in international law really early on. So your 1L spring, you take international law with Professor Helfer. And that was something that I really appreciated because I was doing that for my 1L internship. And so you get those concepts down before the timeline that you otherwise would have. And then this summer, the Duke Leiden Institute, you focus on additional international law and human rights and foreign relations issues after your 1L summer. So once you're going into your 2L year and starting the job search and thinking about what you want to do, you have a much better foundation. And I really appreciated getting those classes in early, getting to meet some of the people in my cohort who are in those small classes, having more interaction with the professors early on, and then starting your 2L year with that background. I took human rights advocacy with Professor Huckerby. That class focuses on applying international law to human rights issues, both domestically and overseas, and thinking about how the frameworks and the things that we had learned about in international law and other classes can be put into practice. It's also something that lays a foundation for the Human Rights Clinic. I'm in the International Human Rights Clinic now, and we're working on a lot of issues of human rights accountability with different stakeholders and organizations. And so human rights advocacy, I think, really set me up for that type of work, and they're both really aligned with what I'm hoping to do professionally. So it was nice to get to a point in law school where you feel like you're really doing the coursework that you want to be doing for your career with professors who have done that type of work and know what it's like and can kind of mentor you in that field. You're definitely doing more work each semester. You are in more credits, you're taking more classes. I think it's just something to be mindful of as you take extracurriculars, that you do have additional requirements and additional papers to write. It also means you get to take a broader range of classes, but you do get a lot of those credits out of the way in the summer. But I was still able to do a number of other activities. I was on the Duke Journal of Comparative and International Law, and then was a submissions editor on the American Journal of International Law, which is a peer-reviewed journal, and was also in the Human Rights Law Society, and did some work on a human rights pro bono project. So there's a lot of opportunity to get involved in different organizations, and it's definitely not something that you have to forego because you're doing an LLM. So I'm the Duke Fellow in Public International Law and Human Rights, and that will start in the fall for the 2023 to 2024 year. And that fellowship is a placement overseas. It's usually 2 6-month placements, one at an international organization and one at an NGO that does human rights work. I'm really interested in human rights accountability, particularly in conflict areas. So that's something that I'm going to be focusing on. So I'll have the chance to look at those issues at an international organization for part of the fellowship, and then at a non-governmental organization for the other half of the fellowship, both internationally. I'm definitely focused on public international law. While I've been in law school, I had internships within the government and within a human rights organization. And so that's really something that I plan to continue on in my career. Something I really like about international law, and particularly human rights work, is that people do move around a lot, both geographically but also within different subject matter areas. So it's a great opportunity to get well-versed in something and then maybe a conflict arises or there's an issue that your expertise can be applied to pretty well. I'll be starting off as a fellowship and then get a better sense of what you like doing and exactly what your interests are and apply the skills that you have from law school and then take that either into another governmental organization, back into an international organization, and sort of continue to move through and develop your skills in that way. So that's definitely my hope. I really enjoyed the internships that I had in law school, and I'm really excited about the fellowship. And so I think after that, I'll be looking at a lot of different things that would be good fits, both in the human rights field and in international law more broadly. Finding people in law school with similar interests is really nice, and especially with international law, or if you're interested in a public interest career, that can be a more challenging path because it's not as clear exactly what to go through. So being in a group of people where not everyone is going to be on that path, but you can find people who are similarly interested, who are also hoping to do international legal work, whether that's right out of school or maybe transitioning into that down the line, is something that's really fun. So prioritizing that in your application process and then being in a cohort of people who also want to do that work is something that's helpful as you go through law school. I also think that having a very clear degree that shows what your interests are can be helpful as you're applying to jobs. As I was job searching and looking at positions that were international in scope and focused on human rights, I found that the people I talked to were really interested in the degree and valued that extra time and the extra courses that you had taken. Going to The Hague also gives you an opportunity to get to know your classmates better and to get to know the professors better early on in your career and have that focus as a 1L so that you don't have to wait until your second and third year to start taking the classes that you find really interesting and the things that you came to law school to do. You can get started on that early and then speak to those skills in your future classes, in your internships, in your career later on.